Today I took my grandson with me to Target. I got him to go by promising to buy him another gel-based frog that he loves to stick to the windows of my convertible from his booster seat, while I try not to think about removing dozens of little frog footprints from the glass. Not that he lost his first frog, Mr. Froggle, who was actually with us on our usual Tuesday night date, an event complete with chicken McNuggets and a game of Barrel of Monkeys, during which my grandson cheated like an investment banker. No, apparently Mr. Froggle, never having heard of online dating or obviously the gym, needed a friend, so we went in search of a companion for him. A snake and lizard were mentioned as possible candidates, though a dinosaur was ruled out immediately. Something about them coming from way different movies was mentioned. I didn't pry. My mission was to combine our weekly outing with my delayed trip to pick up stuff, which I had put off so long that I now had an actual list. Agreeing to hook up Froggle first, my grandson and I went to Target. For those of you who have never tried to navigate entering a store with a 5-year-old boy, especially when 2 squad cars have disgorged their cops who are handcuffing a guy in a Devil Spawn t-shirt, it takes what feels like 4 hours to actually get the kid inside the store, even when you include the time you spend reminding yourself that your own son grew up so fast, yada yada yada. Soon you are just plain making shit up, telling your grandson that we better get inside or all the good frogs will be gone, having been snatched up during happy hour and led astray with visions of a 3,000-square-foot lily pad in a good school district. After my brief but highly tangential lecture about genetics and why creationism should never be taught in schools, my grandson chose a lovely frog in brown with yellow spots. Brown was his favorite color, he informed me, which was why he was voting for Barack Obama. I thought that fair, as there were probably people voting for John McCain because white was their favorite color, even if they would never admit it, not being 5 years old and still on speaking terms with the naked truth. I told my grandson I was also voting for Obama, though not because he was brown, but because he was smart, and 8 years had been long enough for our country to be taking advice from the kid in the class that always finished his picture last, if you know what I mean. My grandson nodded sagely and took my hand. Our next stop was the health and beauty section, where all my purchases were centered. First, I was in desperate need of hair dye, as I could now actually discern the real color of my hair and was quite sure I wanted to keep that to myself. And I was out of the various supplements I take to keep my knees from sounding like Rice Krispies whenever I tried to use them for anything more complicated than lying down. And then there was a refill on my anti-aging serum. While I remain unsure it is actually doing anything, I fear finding out for certain that it was. All of these purchases, it turned out, needed to be explained to my grandson. The first shock to my grandson's system was discovering that I was not blonde exactly. I attempted to duck the issue by explaining that my hair was kind of blonde, which is like saying my lips are kind of like Angelina Jolie's, just smaller, not as red, and a stranger to Brad's. This was not a good direction to take, as my grandson has a penetrating logic, based as it is on disregarding whatever does not make a shred of sense. Obviously, a career in government is out of the question for him. Thankfully, he wants to be a librarian who does professional pillow fighting on the side. As I explained that my hair was actually kind of gray, and no, I didn't like gray the way he liked brown, we moved on to what exactly fish oil was for, and how come I put that white stuff on my face. As I was now running low on bullshit, my creativity dipping, since I hadn't consumed anything but yogurt and chocolate-covered espresso beans all day, I resorted to the truth, because Grandma is old. My grandson accepted this answer a lot more graciously than I did, it turned out. Later that evening, after he'd been returned, jazzed on chocolate-dipped ice cream cone to his unhappy parents, I sat in silence on my sofa with a glass of Cabernet, noticing the wrinkles on the back of my hand. I remembered something my mother had said to me years ago, when aging was still an abstraction, like algebra or the reason for ice hockey. She told me she was surprised sometimes, when she looked at herself in the mirror, that she still felt the same on the inside. I can't say I agree with her exactly, as I actually feel younger on the inside than I have in my memory. An overly serious child, bent on trying to make sense of the insanity of life, especially in Brooklyn, where our landlady had 18 sons but no car. I had never fully embraced immaturity, having now discovered its many virtues, not the least of which is letting go of the responsibility rope that tethered me to people who could energy suck like a Dyson. I find my spirit young in ways I've never before experienced. And yet, as Mom noted, the outside continues its crinkling and its droop. Leaving all distorted concepts of fairness out of this, a feeling of imbalance persists, despite my attempts at alignment. I think of Socrates and his exhortation, "May the inner and the outer be as one," which soundly beats "Have a nice day" on both poetics and confusion potential with store clerks. Socrates' vision of thought and action, I have found, are easier to sink than are my inner debutante gone wild and my outer "what the hell happened to my neck." There is a completely irrational sense that something is broken and needs fixing. That something being an ever-growing list of body parts that no longer look as they once did. Like an IRS audit or running out of coffee, under eye circles was something that happened only to the horribly careless. There was stuff for that. A lot of stuff, as it turns out. I know because I have, at last count, 8 eye stuff jars and tubes, and even 1 vial of white powder that looks suspiciously like something that would have been passed under my dorm door by someone known only as Jimmy, a communications major who lived way off campus and owned a Ferrari. This powder has the added benefit of making one feel like a chemist, activating vital ingredients that will surely turn this whole eye problem thing around. As restraint was never a word used in the same sentence as any part of my name, I doubled the amount of powder to water. I am told by the woman who answered the hotline that my bottom eyelashes will grow back. She assured me she had seen my type before. I, too, have seen my type in Dillard's Cosmetic Village, standing in line like penitents at Lourdes, before a jar tastefully lit on a pedestal, the word serum in platinum beatifically gleaming from its face. This product introduction, heralded from the pages of Vogue and W, attracted these menopausal women the way the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue did their significant others, youthful fantasy playing a pivotal role in both phenomena. I like to think I'm above such marketing tricks, and I am, except when forced to use a public bathroom with fluorescent lighting. The last such incident put me in a jihad trance, where I strapped my credit cards to my chest, leaving behind a video where I explain how my complexion looks in heaven, and apologize to my accountant. When I came out of it, I found myself in Sephora, where they were naming a cash register after me. Most annoying about this whole aging thing is the amount of work it takes to be me now. A mere 5 years ago, my entire beauty ritual was over in 10 minutes, consisting only of soap, eyebrow pencil, and a tinted moisturizer I got at the drugstore up the street. I am currently up to 1 hour and 15, 2.5 hours if false eyelashes are involved, including the time it takes for me to remove the half-pound of glue from my eyelids and call my daughter to remind her I was in labor with her for 12 hours without anesthesia or even a vodka tonic, and I need her to come help me right this minute. Apparently, my face now needs to be resurfaced regularly, like any other heavily trafficked road, a task best accomplished by prescription only. Retin-A, it turns out, is not covered by my insurance, despite all my protestations that if it comes from the drugstore and makes me feel better, it should qualify as medicine. So that's $80 right there. Then there are the moisturizers, one for daytime, one for night, and one for naps. There's serum for underneath, there's sunscreen for on top, eye cream for line minimizing, eye gel for depuffing, and a paste resembling something used to cure diaper rash to put on the permanent pillow creases running across and down my neck. I realized a seismic shift in my consciousness had taken place when I found myself throwing away ace bandages and my UTI meds to make room in my cabinet for the latest additions to my age-denying arsenal. Who needed real medicine when I had researchers in white lab coats and goggles working day and night at their test tubes to send me in the Wayback Machine? All will be well if I can only look, not necessarily be, young again. and therein lies the rubbish. Most of the women I know in their 50s, when asked to answer honestly, would they go back to their 20s if they had to leave behind all they have learned, earned, and become, answer with an emphatic no, and then a but. All the explanations that come after that qualifier have one thing in common. In the end, they are all about being seen. Seen by men, seen by women, seen by themselves in the mirror as they enter the shower. It's all about the chassis and nothing about the engine. And that bugs the shit out of me, being as I had lots of engine trouble back when my front end could handle corners like a Jaguar, to say nothing of my back-in-the-day suspension system. It's far too late to start pretending we don't want to have it all. We are the generation of sex without pregnancy, who bought our own diamonds and used our ovens for storing our off-season clothes. We are the women who took the pejorative ball buster as high praise, laughing in the face of men whose veins were bulging in their collective neck because we said no to whatever it was they had planned for us, and then went on about making our lives. Now that we've got that inner stuff mostly worked out, it's no wonder we think we can go up against nature herself and come out the other side with unlined faces and rocket boobs, especially because we've done it. Thanks to Botox and silicone, we can all close our eyes at the same time and then open to find the birthday surprise of a Beyoncé butt, sans cellulite, all scars hidden in the crease. And maybe that's the gift, really, that I get to do it if I want to, or I get to say no. I may not be ready to give up dermabrasion or L'Oreal 9B, but there's something about this whole regression thing that embarrasses me, and that's hard to do, being as I'm the same chick who belted out "Hey Big Spender" to my clients at a karaoke bar in Tokyo, twice. There's something about the women who are coming after me, like my daughter, and what it says to her that I could march in a DC protest rally for women's rights, but couldn't let go of wanting to be pretty by any means necessary. How, I wonder, will we women ever make a wider definition of what beauty is if we are spending all our retirement money on breast augmentation and tummy tucks, backing our way into old age with the grace of a smoking Chrysler LeBaron? So this is it. Take a look at me, I said to my daughter. This is what 50 looks like. Buffed and polished, maybe, but not altered into a freakish attempt at Barbie after all these years of choosing to play chess instead. And if I was ever tempted, all I need is to recall the image of a naked woman in the locker room last week, a woman with at least 10 years on me, if the skin hanging on her emaciated body was any indication. Her 38D headlights were impossible to ignore, though most of us were doing our best. Her face, tight as a drum, with lips in full-on pout, had the surprised look of a blow-up doll who had just realized she had a slow leak. It's not easy to break my heart without showing me a pair of Louboutin stilettos with a broken heel, but she did. I wanted to hug her and tell her it was going to be all right. I didn't, of course. It turns out there are things even I won't do, especially when naked. And it is going to be all right. It won't be smooth and firm and flawless, but I can promise that it's a lot less annoying. I, for one, have not missed being chatted up in a parking lot by a mustached 60-something man in skin-tight cutoffs who wants me to join his new church. Nor have I missed all that standing around in bars trying for a look of indifference that I mistakenly believed would weed out the crazies. I'm far too busy now actually drinking in bars and dancing until my hair can be mistaken for an Easter hat worn by a very old black woman. Not giving a shit, it turns out, is quite a youth elixir. And while the inner and the outer might never be as one exactly, there is something to be said for giving up the idea of alignment altogether. These days, I'm shooting for something a little more lopsided, something surprisingly old, happiness. And that, along with my serum, will do me just fine.